Hi, I'm Ariya Larker, and you are listening to my podcast, All Things Acting with Ariya, a place where I talk to creatives about this wonderful, crazy, and painful career we call acting. If you are not an actor, please do stay tuned, because though this podcast is called All Things Acting, we will also discuss the general torturous but rewarding life as a creative. Hello and welcome back to my podcast. I am very, very excited about today's guest. Having lived in LA, worked with Catherine Zeta-Jones, married Ozzy Osbourne's son, Louise Osbourne, welcome to my podcast. It's such an honour to have you on here.
Oh, I'm delighted, Ariya. Thank you.
I'm positive that we have so much we can learn from you over the next half an hour or so, but for my guests who probably haven't maybe heard much about you, can you give us a brief introduction into who Louise Osbourne is?
Right. Okay. So I'm from Ireland. I lived in LA for 8 years. Met my husband there, who's from Birmingham, and we moved back to England. But while I was there, I worked on crew for a lot of major motion pictures. So I worked with Robin Williams and Eddie Murphy and Owen Wilson, and I did so many different things in so many departments. So I was director's assistant, producer's assistant, and yes, I was Catherine Zeta-Jones' personal assistant for a couple of years, which was such a joy. She was such a great lady. And then I moved back to Ireland with my husband and started a family. And I started taking an acting class. I mean, I did a bunch of different acting classes in LA. I did the Beverly Hills Playhouse and Warner Lachlan Studios. And when I came back to Ireland, I started Vinnie Murphy's Acting for Screen class. And I did that for a few years, and then we moved to Birmingham, and there was not an acting for screen class here. It was very theatre. There were lots of theatre workshops, but nothing for screen. Mm-hmm. So I set up my my classes there that have been running for 10 years.
Incredible. One thing I've always been so eager to ask you is, how did you get into this? Like, you started in Ireland. How on earth did you get to LA? And then how did you get into sort of the whole acting for screen teaching side? What was it about the teaching that you loved?
I think how I got into it initially was I was living in San Francisco at the time, and a friend of mine was a location manager, and just by chance, he needed an assistant on an Eddie Murphy movie called Metro. So I started that, and then I lived in San Francisco for a few years. I worked on a couple of Robin Williams films. I did What Dreams May Come, and then I worked on a TV show called Nash Bridges with Don Johnson and Cheech Marin. And then I just moved to LA, and it's funny because in LA it doesn't really go off resumes like to get your next job. You basically work with a department, and the department heads will take you on their next job and their next job. So you just go from movie to movie with whatever your boss is doing. And then when I moved to Ireland, as I said, I was taking Vinnie Murphy's class, and I took his class for about 5 years, and I made 2 films while I was doing his class, and I had 2 children. And when I moved to Birmingham, I don't know what made me want to teach. I think because I was really disappointed there was nothing here for screen acting, and I talked to him about it, and he said, "Lou, run your own." I mean, I was petrified for the first year but I had a lot of knowledge from behind the scenes, and it's my classes are very, oh, well, you've been to my class, so you obviously know, but I don't teach a certain method. My classes are very much, you watch yourself back and we all learn together, and I point out obvious things that maybe are not truthful, that you might, but a lot of time honest actors can see an instinct or something they did that they thought might look good, and it, because they thought about it, they're not in character, so it doesn't look good, it looks fake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I think that's yeah.
Nice. And I want to talk a little bit more about your classes. Yeah, you mentioned we met because I came to your class. I believe it was back in 2018 because I was working in production with the BBC as a runner. And it was sort of my first insight into acting for screen. I did a weird thing where I thought, oh, I really want to work in screen. I'm going to go be a runner. And little did I realise there is literally no way that you have time to try and like get in front of the screen and go to auditions, because it's like it's a hefty job. It's like from 7 in the morning until 7 p.m. And then I remember every Tuesday I would finish and come straight to class. And it started at 7, and most of the time I was late, but you didn't care about that. You know, I walked in, you were like, "Hi, Ariya, come in, come sit down, let's carry on." And even though I was so tired, it it brought me so much joy and so much excitement every single week. And I think that's because of you and your teaching method and how everyone becomes this family. And you also have this really nice structure of having, you know, I started your 6-week course and I was like, this isn't enough, I need more. And then I did your 12-week course, and you have like the Tuesday class and the Wednesday class, and it's really nice to cross over sometimes and meet actors from the other class. And we've all gone on to do other things. You've seen, we've done like showreel scenes together, like me and Bethany have, and, you know, gone on to work on projects like Adris and I have done Turf, and we've done, you know, other short films. Can you talk a little bit more about sort of your teaching method, and maybe give some advice to actors who are new to this industry and sort of searching for classes? What advice would you give to them?
Well, I think firstly, going back to you, because I did what you did in LA, you know, I was working 14-hour days and arriving at class really late. But and somebody told me years ago, his name was Bruce Dern, he was an older actor, and I was his driver on The Haunting with Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
And he said to me, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, I really want to act." I said, "But you're not really allowed to say that as a crew member. Like if you're a runner, you can't really tell the director of doctors that you want to be in the next scene, or you know." And he said to me, "You tell absolutely everybody. You tell everybody. Don't let anybody, you know, tell you that you can't tell everybody on this film set that you want to act, you know, because you never know." And when you came in, you know, from being those long days, but the second you walked in the door, you were energized. And I think that's what it does, because the adrenaline that you have in your tummy when you're about to do a scene gives you energy to go on. And I would say to anybody, I mean, my class has been running for 10 years, and I've had people that have had the dream for 20 years, you know, and their parents told them they need to get a proper job, a doctor, a lawyer, blah, blah, blah. And then they get to a certain age and they think, you know what, if I don't try it now. And you know, people are cast from all ages, from 3 years old, 2 years old to 60, 70, 80, 90. You know, there's no time, there's no too late. You know, there's always time if you want to do it. And I think taking classes is probably one of the first protocols. You know, get out there, break down those barriers of uncomfortableness, you know, because it's about stepping into those moments where, you know, where your stomach is in tatters and your butterflies, but you know you want to do it, so you have to step in. I think my classes are very um they're warm, you know. I don't really tolerate any bad blood or negative or people putting other people down. That's just not a good environment to be in.
Yeah.
So when everybody gets them, I found that, and I absolutely adore when my class and my students go out and do things together, because that's what it's about. You've got to create your own work. And when you find a bond and somebody buys a camera and you rotate, I mean, if you look at Judd Apatow and all those guys that did like, I'm huge fans of these guys because they rotate like they did, you know, 40-Year-Old Virgin, This Is 40, Knocked Up. So Judd Apatow will be the director. His wife Leslie Mann is pretty much in most of them, even had their kids, but they rotate. So they're a bunch of friends, you know, Jonah Hill, Seth Rogen, and they all decide to do different things and they make incredible, really funny films. And that's what I love about my class, because when I watch you guys all going out and doing these short films together, honestly, it makes me feel so proud. And I'm so proud of everybody, because everybody seems to have gone on and carried on doing something
Mm.
entertainment creative wise, you know. And whether that's going to other classes, which I think is really important, because you get something from my class, you'll get something from doing a workshop in London, you'll get something from so many. And if you can piece all those little tips together,
Yeah.
then you have the makings of building an amazing character, which is ultimately the most important thing.
Another thing I really wanted to talk about is, in some of your classes you go through sort of mock castings, and we discuss the side of commercials, because acting for screen isn't just about, you know, film and TV. You've got to, you know, one commercial can, you know, pull you through the year, and it means that you can focus on, you know, everything else that you want to get done. As someone who has been quite successful with getting commercials yourself, are there any tips you could give to actors? Because I know actors who are brilliant, that, they get constant stage jobs and constant screen jobs, and they always get put up for commercials, but they never quite book the commercials. And I think it's because it's a completely different ball game to sort of character acting. Can you talk a little bit more about your experience with commercials and maybe offer some advice for actors who are maybe struggling with them?
Well, I think the most important thing to think about commercials is that the same casting director that is casting that commercial will be on the next big TV show. So, what I would say to most actors is that you can kill a commercial, you can nail it. It could be the best audition ever. You can walk out being fully confident and not book, or maybe get a pencil and not book. And that is absolutely nothing to do with you. That is to do with the client who are, let's say, Warburton's Bread, for instance. So they have been, working in the offices there. They've come up, they've got some money they want to spend on a commercial. They are not coming from a creative side. They're coming from somebody drew up a plan, a little storyboard, and they're not really able to kind of move from that really in their head. So when you walk through the door as an actor, most of the time before you finish saying your name, they know whether you're going to be it or not. It's that idea they have of that exact look, and and sometimes they go for the wild cards. They do, but it's not terribly often. So I would say to actors going up and getting, because I've gone up for tons of commercials, and you've booked a bunch of commercials too, Aria. And I've booked a bunch as well, but I've also had a million heavy pencils, and a million, sorry, they've gone a different direction. And I think the most important thing is and it's difficult because it's rejection. Rejection's never nice, but to be able to dust yourself off and put it down to having a really good meeting with a casting director. You go in and you nail that and you walk out the door, and whether you have got the job or not, a casting director is going to remember you. And maybe she'll remember you for, a TV show or a feature film she's doing. But I think if you can put it down to making those connections, making the network a little bit bigger, and getting to know that casting director, because the next time they'll be like, "Oh, Aria, nice to see you again," and then you've got a connection. They know your face. They're going to keep calling you in. And it's not down to them, the casting director, but as long as they keep putting you up, then you're in their good books, and they know you can nail it.
Very true. And also, we've been talking a lot about casting directors and directors. For some of my listeners and viewers who are maybe completely new to this industry, can you briefly explain the difference? Well, what is a casting director and how are they different to a director of the actual project?
So I think what you need to remember is that a casting director has to go up for jobs like an actor. So a casting director needs to be able to be hired. So they go up against other casting directors for a job, because that's, that we're all in the same game, just at different levels. So the director is the top of the triangle. So the director makes the final say. A casting director is hired to put a bunch of people together that she thinks can get the job. And she believes in every single actor that she's calling in. So a casting director is a hired production head that gets together, gets the brief. So if it's a commercial or if it's a TV show, she'll get the script, she'll highlight all the big parts, and they'll normally go out to named actors, which is box office, and they bring in the money. And a lot of times they don't even have to audition. They just, they're picked up, would you like this part? And then it filters down through the smaller 2 days, 3 days, 4 days parts. And then a casting director will get 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people in to read, and these days over Zoom, which is quite different and difficult. But then and so she'll put them together, and then she'll put them on tapes, and then it'll be watched by producer, the casting director, and the director, and then it'll get whittled down to a final callback for 4 or 5 people, and then all those actors will read again and again, and the director and the producer will normally choose who books the job, whether that's a commercial or anything else, TV or film.
Wow, what a process. And you forget a lot of the time as an actor, you go for an audition, you're like, why haven't I heard back yet? And it's because it's going through so many different people before they can make the decision, because they want to pick the best actor for that role. Also, I wanted to talk about beyond acting and teaching, because right now you're working on other projects. Am I right in saying that you're producing now as well, and you're working on a film?
Yeah, so I decided I've been writing for about 15, 20 years. And I haven't really done a lot with my scripts. They've gone around a few places and they've got a little bit of attention, then they kind of fizzled away. And I decided about 2 years ago that I want to start my own production company. And I was part of a writer's room, and myself and this other writer set up Emmeline Productions. And she, Carmen Capuana, is my production partner, and she is a crazy, amazing Scottish woman who writes about 8 hours a day, and she just finishes script after script after script, and they're all really, really good. I don't know where she gets all her ideas from, but together we have a lot of scripts. And at the moment we are yes, we're just in pre-production on a feature film, a thriller. So we're hoping to shoot it in June. And we were going to go abroad to shoot it, but because of Brexit and because of COVID, we're going to shoot it in the Midlands, which I'm really excited about, because there's a big, big hole in the Midlands as far as production, and it's really frustrating. I've been really frustrated for the last 10 years because people always end up going to London, Manchester, Bristol, and Birmingham is just left, So I'm hoping that in the next year and a half, and my production company, as well as other people's, will start bringing the industry back to the city. But my production company has another arm of it, which is we really, really want to run a sustainable production company. So an eco-friendly production company, but also we want to run. So instead of just like, some of our stories are very hard hitting. They're all fiction, but they're based on truths, whether it's teen suicide or post-traumatic stress disorder or drug abuse or homelessness. So what we plan to do is to reach out to the charities within our community. And instead of just putting a Samaritan number at the end of our shows, we're actually going to try and take a group of the people that we write about, whether they're marginalized or um, and who are vulnerable, and try and in within the arts, somewhere in the industry, if they're interested in learning how to write, direct, act, we're going to run workshops, and we're going to try and retrain and upskill these people so they can go and either have a career in the arts or go back to education, so we can actually make a difference within our community, which I'm really proud about, and I can't wait to get started on that.
What a wonderful idea, definitely. Also, another thing I wanted to talk about is it must be really interesting producing a film during this current time. And I know that a lot of filmmakers have had to, turn to Zoom auditions and self tapes. Can you talk a little bit about how that's been for you? Maybe give some tips to actors for their like self tapes or Zoom auditions. What stands out to you?
Well, I think self tapes before the pandemic was becoming the norm. It was much cheaper. You have a much far wider reach. If you do self tapes as a feature film casting director, you can get actors from America, Australia, wherever, into the room. And so it makes it much less expensive. And so it was definitely becoming a thing. And now I think every actor needs to learn how to do the right self tape. And I think there's a couple of key things with self taping: light, background, sound, and where you put the camera. So the first thing is having a plain background. And I think what you have behind you and what I have is have a little space in your apartment or in your house that is your self tape area. Whether you can leave it up or not, you know exactly where you're going to go to. And there's loads of stuff online, so you can have a plain background, a plain backdrop that you can just unzip, put up, and a light. So if you have a really good, whether it's a circular light or a box light, I mean, you can get them for 30, 40 pounds on Amazon. And I also think it's really important to have a lapel mic if you have one. They're 15 pounds, and they plug into phones or they plug into your camera. So if you have those three things, you're not going to have any shadows on your face. You're not going to have anything behind you, and your sound is going to be really crisp and clear. And I think it's massively important when you're doing self tapes to make sure that your eyes and your full face is takes up most of the space. So your face and your shoulders, because casting directors know if you are being authentic through your eyes. They know that every line that you say is a line that you believe in because of your eyes, and if they can see into those eyes, then you've got a much better chance. And also, you know, so many actors don't either prepare. I mean, self tapes, because you're not getting into the room, you don't actually have to get on a train and sit in a waiting room and then be called in and physically meet the director. Actors are a little blasé about it, and I think it's your first port of call. You've got to put as much preparation into that self tape in your sitting room as you did getting on the train and going to London. So make sure you are completely off book. Make sure you know exactly the brief. So, um, do they want you to introduce yourself? Exactly those things. Make sure you get it in on time, or early would be best, because if they've given you till Thursday at 3 o'clock and you're doing a Thursday at 2 o'clock, they might have already cast it. They might have cast it because they got 60 tapes in last night before 9 o'clock. They went through them, and they might even look at your tape. So I think once you get a self tape casting in, look at the brief, know exactly what they want, exactly what they want you to say, learn your line, set up your thing, and do it, as soon as you can, and get it in. Follow the brief, send it in the format they want it in, whether that's Dropbox or WeTransfer. They're all, they it seems like a lot when you first look at it and think, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. But it's so easy. Once you read it through and you download, they've made it so much more. It's just so, it's like for dummies at the moment. Anybody can really do it. Once you have the necessary tools, which means you do need a decent computer or a decent phone to be able to film yourself. But besides that, I think once you get all the little bits, it builds your confidence. Once you are not like hanging, like when I first start doing it, I didn't have a good light and I didn't have a backdrop, but I had like a kind of plain spot in one of the kids' bedrooms, and I had a bunch of different lamps up, but it was like one was too bright there, one was a shadow there, and it knocks your confidence. If you've got the right tools, the light, the backdrop, the mic, you're already building your confidence that you're in the right space. You're professional, and then you learn your lines and you get in and you send it off, and then it's to the gods. Then you've done your bit, and that's all you can. That's all you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, I've had self tapes that I've sent off, and I didn't get the role, and I was so gutted. But the casting director saw the amount of effort I put in, and they sent a note back to my agent and said she didn't get it, and we're sorry, went in a different direction, but can you let her know that we were really impressed with her self tape. We could tell that she thought about the costume, and it looked really nice. And sometimes as an actor, even if you don't get it, it's just it's nice that people can recognise that, and I think they do. I've been listening and watching a lot of videos of casting directors talking about it, and even though they can look past the quality, and obviously they'll always look at the acting first, it really helps if your footage looks nice, because if you're looking through 500 submissions, the one that looks nice, it helps, especially if the sound quality is good as well.
And it also, I think, if they're putting forward 25 actors that all look like they've just got out of bed and went to a corner with a bad line, it does look good on them, and they are your champions. The fact that they wrote to you and said you didn't get it this time, but we loved the submission. That's great. That's a casting director that remembers you, so that's a casting director that the next time anything remotely that suits you comes in, they will definitely go to your agent and say, let's bring Ariya in for this one. It's all about creating that good connection, that they have a good memory of the experience with you, that you put in that decent self tape. I think it's really, really important.
Definitely, and that's sort of what this industry is, isn't it? Building network and showing that you get the job done and you're an easy person to work with. Because I also had casting directors do, especially when it comes to commercials, sometimes they pick the actor that they think, yeah, there'll be someone really nice to work with. So definitely showing yourself and the best version of yourself is always the best way forward.
I think if they're talking about working with somebody, especially on TV or film, where it's going to be 4 or 5 months, 10, 14 hours a day, they don't want somebody who's not a team player, who's going to be a diva, who's going to be either late or cause a stink or doesn't like their lines. And nobody wants that in their team. This is a hard enough job to get done. So I think that's massively important. I think once they see that you are easy to get along with, you have a good personality, you're not, gripey or grouchy or giving out about whatever, then you're doing yourself a favor for sure.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Louise. I feel like we've covered a lot there, and I've gotten a lot out of that, and hopefully the people listening and viewing on my YouTube channel will also have gotten a lot out of it. So before I let you go, are there any final bits of advice that you could give to our actors, maybe those who are new to the industry, maybe those who are struggling during COVID, anything that you can tell them to keep going?
I think the first thing I would say is, do you really want it?
Mm-hmm.
If you really want it, then if as long as you can persevere, because there is a lot of rejection, and have resilience, take those rejections, have it, have a moment going, I'm really upset I didn't get that job, but the next one will come. So it's about persevering, and it's about being resilient to the rejection, and it's about resisting. I think it's difficult for some actors to get sucked down that, especially with social media, to get sucked down the whole of looking at how better other actors are doing. It's your journey, nobody else's journey. You can't be, if you keep looking at other people and having that resentment, and then it's knocking away a little bit of your path. You've got to be on that path, you've got to want it, and you've just got to do whatever you can do to get it. Think outside the box, but create your own work. Take classes, reach out, write to casting directors, write to agents. Keep pushing. Just keep pushing.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Louise. It has been such an honour speaking to you, and I really hope you've enjoyed this as well.
It's been absolutely lovely. Such a pleasure to chat to you.
Oh, thank you. Well, thank you to everybody listening, and please do tune in next time for my next podcast.